Yes, yes, we can see that.
Yeah. So through this session, the plan is to give a high-level view, not a detailed view of the various design protocols that are adopted in the industry for development of biomedical devices. So the agenda for the session is a brief introduction about ICT MSD, our institute, design in general, and medical device design in particular, and some of the few processes, methods, and tools used for robot design in the industry, both in the country and outside. So, starting with a brief intro of SCTMST. SCTMST is a national institute under the administrative control of Department of Science and Technology, and we basically has three centers. One for biomedical technology and device development, BMT wing. Second is a tertiary care hospital for cardio and neuro specialties. And third is Achyuta Menon Center for Health Science Studies. So basically, I am attached to BMT wing. And in BMT wing, the fundamental objective is for the promotion of biomedical engineering and technology. And some of the areas which we are working is device development, device and material evaluation, applied research activities, and other human resource development like teaching and training. So coming to the main objective of the session, uh, Chitra has been associated with developing devices based on the merit of the risk, based on different design protocols and process, and was able to successfully transfer around 16 technologies till 2018. So these are some of the commercialized technologies till 2018 across the different parts of the country. So I will share some of the design protocols which we have used in some of the old commercially transferred and successful products with a decent lifespan. So to begin with, in general, by the term design in biomedical devices or any other devices, probably most of the people might be aware of different terms like manufacturability, quality, safety, design for X, like design for sustainability, design for manufacturing, design for reliability, etc. So through this session, we will be going through some of these tools, techniques, or concepts, and how this is used by different protocols. So to begin with, it will be easy to discuss medical device development process through a simple and popularly accepted concept called waterfall process, which is a design documentation process widely adopted by Canada, USA, and most of the countries. So, just starting with a theoretical background, which probably most of the engineers working in design knows. As per Joseph Shigley, design is a highly iterative and decision-making process to meet and solve a specific problem. And the product that is designed has to be number one, functional. It should be usable. It should be reliable. It should be marketable and manufacturable if we are planning for a commercial product, or else if it is not stick, it is not needed. It should be marketable. It should be manufacturable, and the country and the industries in that particular country should be able to manufacture it in required quantities to meet the supply. It should be competitive with the existing products, and it should be safe. So these are the generic concept of a design. So depending upon the various applications where design is used, there are different categories like engineering design, creative design, industrial design, etc. And this presentation is focused on engineering design because that is where we mostly care for biomedical devices. So this is the waterfall design process, which is in general used by US FDA and Canada-based health agencies for their device qualification and other documentation purpose. Generally, the procedure starts with identification of user needs. The user needs will be converted into design input. The design input will be further drilled down into a design or a prototype. And finally, it has to be generated into a design output, and finally we will be getting the medical device. And two terms which in general we will be going to use after this particular slide is verification and validation. Verification in general means whether the design output is meeting the design input, and validation is whether the device is meeting the user needs. So the detailed step by step and associated tools will be described from next line onwards. So starting with the first step, the user needs. So depending upon the market where we are placing our device, there are various channels to collect the user requirement. In general, there are three categories for collecting user requirement. Number one is technical requirement. Number two is business requirement. Number three is statutory and regulatory requirement. So based on which device we are developing and which market we are going to position it, these three categories need to be addressed. In this particular presentation, we will be probably focusing more on the technical requirement, not much in detail of the business and regulatory aspects. So on the technical side, usually the concept can be launched with the help of a cartoon. It will help you to identify what is the need for the proper understanding of the user requirement. So let us assume a swing as shown here. Probably this is an analogy to compare what is the requirement of the user or what is the clinical requirement. They actually want some low cost thing or a working thing like this, which is shown in this cartoon. When he tried to convey this idea to his engineer, the engineer need to develop a specification based on the input which he received from the user or the clinical side. So what if an engineer generate a specification which is wrong, which may not be affecting or may not be giving the functioning which the clinical user wanted? If this miscommunication is continued down the line, again finally the device will be like this. So whereas the engineer says, yeah, there are all the components which were mentioned by the clinical person is there. It is having the rope, it is having the seat, but finally when we go back to the clinical side, it may not be working. Even after this particular stage, if the miscommunication is propagating again to the downstream side, the marketing team will be projecting what finally during the clinical use will be something like this. So this is a famous cartoon which is published outside by different MNCs to give an idea of what is the importance of requirement captures. So for a medical device or any particular device, the first stage is to properly capture the requirements. They told there are three different areas for looking. Number one is technical, number two is business aspects, number three is regulatory. So coming to the technical aspects, the user or clinical needs in general will be very vague. They will not be giving you the exact numbers or engineering terms or scientific terms to develop a product, whereas they will be giving only qualitative statements. So just to give us an example, say there is a clinical requirement like a device is required for treating heart attack and heart blocks. So that is a condition where there is a small fatty deposit inside one of the blood vessel which is supplying blood to the heart. So in general, the existing market, there are many devices called stents. Stents will be delivered through a delivery system. It will be reaching the heart by traveling through the blood vessel. And finally, at the location, the balloon will be expanded and it will be taken back. So this device will be staying intact in the position where the fatty deposit is. After that, blood will flow smoothly and the disease can be cured. So keeping this as a example, so I can give a brief bird's eye view of what are the different stages involved if we are aligning ourselves to the waterfall. So the user needs, starting with the user needs, the clinical persons or the doctors will be telling we should be able to easily position the device inside the location. The second requirement maybe it should be easy to deliver it. Third, maybe it should be easy to access it. So basically, what an engineer is getting from the medical fraternity is easy to position, easy to access, and easy to deploy. So this easy cannot be converted just like that into specifications or numbers. That has to go through a structured pattern. So the first step is from the qualitative requirement from the clinical side, an engineer and his team need to convert it into functional requirements. So different industry may be using different nomenclature. So sticking to the one which we are following, the functional requirements is noted in short form as capital YS or big Y. From the functional requirements, it will be converted into design requirement, which is the product specific, which in turn in industry is called as capital XS. And finally, there will be a manufacturing process, and the process needs certain capabilities to meet our design. So this is called process requirement. So from user or clinical needs, three different set of specifications need to be developed. Number one is functional requirements. It should be grilled down to design requirement, and finally, it should be grilled down to process requirement. So, giving a small example for that, let's take a user or clinical need as easy to introduce. So easy to introduce should be converted into functional requirements. So, the MBBS, those doctors or pharmacists or whoever be the user, they may not be a specialist in the concerned product. So this product team has to convert easy to introduce into functional requirements. Like easy to introduce means it should be easy to push the device through the blood vessel. Crossing profile. Crossing profile means the cross section of the device should be small enough so that it has to travel through the blood vessel. Torqueability. That means the blood vessel will be having too much of twists and turns depending upon the anatomy of the patient, age, gender, etc. So it should bear sufficient torque and it should be easy to torque it through the blood vessel. Fourth will be flexible. Most of the blood vessels are twisted and will be having huge radius of curvature. So the device should be flexible enough to bear associated moments and bending. So this is the first set of conversion of a wake qualitative voice of customer to functional requirements. So once the functional requirements are done, now for the device, we need to find out what is the engineering term or engineering parameters which can be associated with pushability. So pushability or pushing in turn is associated to force. Crossing profile is associated to the diameter of the device. Torque obviously related to the torque in Newton meters or Newton millimeters. Flexibility is related to the bending moment of the particular device. Similarly, if a clinical requirement is easy to position means visibility to be optimum so that the clinical persons can position it at the exact location where it is required. So the easy to position is converted into a functional requirement as visibility. How can we achieve the visibility inside human body? Probably maybe through radio opaque markers. So if we look at now on the left hand side, this easy to introduce and easy to position is not measurable. Whereas on the right hand side, the design requirement for access are all terms which are critical, measurable, and we can put numbers for that. So the first step is identify the requirements and convert the requirements into numbers. So these numbers are called target specifications. So this design inputs is the second step as per the waterfall model or a simple model for a biomedical device development. And design input means from clinical requirements, the functional and design requirements need to be generated till numbers. Coming to the third stage is design process. Depending upon the device, depending upon the risk level, there are different methods associated with the device development. If you are taking an engineering device, Probably there are three different approaches with which we can start a device design. Number one is analytical. Number two is computational method, and number three is experiments. So in general, the first stage in the design process is to begin with engineering or scientific methods. So different tools like analytical formulas, LUM diagram, piecewise diagrams, schematic diagrams, system engineering approaches are all available for this analytical method, where the team can analytically determine the boundaries or the numbers which are essential for the device design. So once we are pretty much sure with the approximate boundaries or numbers, the next stage is bringing it towards a more optimum configuration, which should be safe and effective, that can be achieved through computational methods or through experiments. So nowadays, with the improvement in the computational methods, the computing system, and the solvers, probably many of the problems in nonlinear and most of the problems in linear domain can be converted into computational domain that can be used to determine solutions results which are probably costly using material men and machine. So nowadays industries are following a concept called analysis driven design, where they will try to bring down the cost by using various computational methods. So once the team is pretty much confident about the computational method and their modeling maturity, the next step is proceeding towards experiments. So the final design, which is freeze in the computational methods, can be prototyped and it can be tested. Testing again can be done in two methods. Number one, we can make engineering test systems, which will be similar to the biological environment where the device is intended to work. For example, this picture on the right hand bottom side shows a pathway which is created by the engineering team, and this pathway will be mimicking the path through which the device will be inserted inside the blood vessel. So this is basically a blood vessel and will capture the torches, the twists and turns of the anatomy. So either this can be done, or number two is simulated system. So this one on the left hand side, which is more closely related to a patient anatomy and the biological aspects, the surrounding, etc., which will be looking pretty much close to a real anatomy. So either a simulated system or an engineering system, both will serve the purpose of experiments. So these are in general the three steps. And within that, depending upon the company, depending upon the industry, there are different subcategories. For example, analytical method itself will have been different teams. Computational method will be having different teams called systems engineering or plan modeling, computational modeling for system level, modeling for subsystem level, and modeling for component level. So depending upon how big the industry is or how big the requirements for the particular product is, that level of expertise teams can be adopted, can be built for that product development. So similarly for electrical devices, electronic devices, there are different predictive analytical methods, computational tools, softwares, and experimental systems. Sometimes we need to develop an experimental system of our own, or we can go for accredited and approved systems which are available in market. So going towards the design output, the expectation from a design output is, first of all, the team should be aware of what is the acceptance criteria. If you don't know the acceptance criteria, we will be making some design which we will think is good, and on real field it will be failing. So even before we are developing a design or a prototype, we should be having some idea about what has to be the acceptance criteria for which we need to be develop a design. For example, for a medical device which is implantable, which is inside human body, in general, almost all cardiovascular implants are designed for 50 years. So the safe service life is 50 years bare minimum. So whichever device which we are going to develop for a cardiovascular implant should be meeting 50 years if that is our target. Similarly, for MRI compatibility, a target criteria should be like up to 3 Tesla of magnetic field. The device should not be producing any image artifacts or any movement from the location or any heating issue. So these numbers and acceptance criteria should be clear at the design stage itself. Or else we will be developing something for which we don't know which is the safe limit. So acceptance criteria is the number one design output. Number two is the engineering drawings and engineering models with which either we or the partner to which we are transferring the data should be able to produce and reproduce the design. And the third one is prototype. So design output stage, we expect a prototype which will work, and the function, it will be meeting the intended purpose. And it is also expected that it should be safe and effective. It is also expected that by the end of design output stage, the team has to have various design verification activities. So here I am schematically representing one computational plot of a heart valve. Whereas in reality, depending upon the product, we may have to do maybe tens and hundreds of testing. To give an idea about the depth of testing involved in various devices, if you take a medical device like a stent, it has only one critical component, basically a bare metal platform. If you are taking a device like a heart valve, which has three critical components, I am repeating critical components, not number of components. The critical components is three. Similarly, if you are looking at automobile sector, a Tata truck has bare minimum 5,000 critical components. And if you are looking at a aerospace industry, a Boeing 737 is having around approximately 10 lakh critical components. So for a device to be intended to function and to be placed in the market, almost all these critical components should be evaluated in the design stage for its safety and efficacy. That's why even though we are able to develop a design within maybe say 1 month or within 1 year, the testing and qualification will be taking years and years. It will be going up to 7 years to 10 years, both in high-risk medical device industry and again in aerospace. So the testing and certification is a pretty risky area where we should be focusing very much, and only with the safe and effective data, then only it can move to the next stage of clinical trial or for in aerospace industry for the flight. And the final one associated with design output is risk analysis and management. So till 2015, the kind of standards which people in general followed in India was different. In fact, till 2005, it was very different. From 2005 to 2015, there was a transition stage. And post 2015, we are following the set of standards insisted by the medical device regulative. So I will come to the details later. So as a part of that, whichever device we are developing, there should be an associated risk analysis and management at first in the design stage. All the design verification activities should be undertaken based on the risk analysis and management. A schematic view of that is, assume a person is running from one particular mountain to the next through a cliff. There are three cases associated with this particular activity. He can either fall down or he can cross this cliff. So if you fall down, what is the severity of that fall? If he is going to jump to the next platform, what is the probability with which you will be reaching that platform? And number three is dictatability. Dictatability means either this person can run at morning or he can run at night. During night, probably there may not be sufficient lighting, and the person will not be knowing that there is a cliff. So there are three parameters: severity, probability, or occurrence, and the third one, dictatability. Yes for severity, O for occurrence or probability, and D for dictatability. So combining these three parameters, severity, occurrence, and dictatability, the corresponding group need to be identified what are the critical risk factors, so that for identifying the risk factors and mitigating it, what are the various design verification activities that need to be carried out. So, in general, in medical industries, we can categorize these activities into three. Number one, group X activities, which the design team has to be mandatorily complete in the design stage in the place where the R&D is taking place. Category Y or number two are the testing, which again the design team need to do at the place where they are doing R&D. And category three is the test or activities where hands-on testing may not be required. Even literature will be sufficient from an accepted peer-reviewed journal. So the category one, two, and three is now changed into risk management activity. So nowadays, this XYZ category or category one, two, and three, where the testing should be done and completed either by the industry who is taking up the project or the one done by the developer, or it is easy based on the literature. This method or this approach is not being used currently, but till 2015 to 2017, this was the method which was widely used all over the country and in most of the places. But now, with more and more strictness on regulatory requirement, the medical device industry is also strictly adhering to the risk analysis and risk management approach, where rather than this one, two, and three method or X, Y, and Z approach, different risk management tools are being used. So these are the few tools or techniques or methods or criteria which basically is expected from a medical device developer at the design output stage. So to repeat the different process, we started with the user needs. Basically, in medical device, it is clinical inputs. Number two is design inputs. Design input means how to convert the qualitative or vague user requirements into measurable and critical engineering parameters. Number three is design process, different analytical, computational, experimental methods which can be adopted for design. Number four is design output. Once the prototype is done, what are the expected data and expected tools and documentations which are required for that? And finally, after verification and validation, once the device is ready and it is good to go, it can be commercialized. So coming to Chitra back again, these are some of the products which were developed, tested, and commercialized by Srijitra. So if you look at these devices like blood bags, artificial heart valve, vascular graft, or any orthopedic material, none of these will be following similar pattern or similar experiments in functional level, because depending upon the user requirement, we need to develop a testing protocol. So the testing protocol for a blood bag will be entirely different from an artificial heart valve, which will be entirely different from a vascular graft. Again, the risk of the devices heart valve is much bigger when compared to a hemoconcentrator or a membrane oxygenator. So after taking into account of the risk level, the functionality, we need to first plan what are the device verification activities, and based on the verification activities only subsequent tests will be performed. So this concept of user requirement to design input to process output and medical device will be hold true. But within these steps, what are the activities carried out that will vary from device to device. And these are some of the very low risk activities which were carried out during COVID-19. So if you look at these devices like a disinfection device based on UVC, or a walkway, or a deployable hospital with all ICU facility for COVID-19 management, these devices are not working inside human body. They are working outside human body. So the level of test requirements, the level of reliability demonstration is pretty low when compared to heart valve. So if we go to the device EV Sport, this is the device which low risk and which will be requiring least number of tests when compared to an artificial heart valve, which will be requiring close to 7 to 10 years of testing prior to clinical trial. So this is to give a brief idea about what is the testing requirement for different products. So if we go to the wide pool of platform, this particular hardware was entering into the testing stage in 2006 probably, and all the experimental tests and reliability tests were completed by probably 2015. So approximately 8 to 9 years. That is the approximate time frame for hardware development and testing. Whereas this device is hardly 2 weeks EV Sport. So you can understand the depth of the test and the time requirements for different devices. So this is basically categories based on the risk category of the device. So now, since I hope you are aware of the different stages as per a generic waterfall model, we can shed light into few design process methods and tools which are widely used by corporates, MNCs, and medical device developer all over the world, which in addition to this waterfall model will give your device robustness. So robustness is something like your device is expected to do the intended function every time, for every piece, and for a period of time. So the first method or one of the approach which almost everyone follow for safety critic devices is DFR, or design for reliability. So taking into one component like a heart wall, this heart wall will be implanted in a person who is around 40 years age, approximately, as per the anthropology data and the clinical data from India. So once this implant takes place at 40 years of age, the person is expected to live more than 80 years of age. So the device should be designed for a safe service life of 50 years bare minimum. So assuming if the heart beating rate of a healthy human being is around 72 beats per minute, 50 years of service life inside human body will be approximately 2000 million cycle or around 2 crore cycle. That means this device will be working 2 crore cycles of operation inside human body. And unlike automobile devices or home appliances, we don't have a maintenance schedule or a chance to do maintenance because it's a surgical procedure. Once it is done, it is done. Until and unless there is a medical emergency. So the device should be designed in such a way that without any maintenance, without any corrective action, it should work the same for 50 years. So how can we do that? It can be executed through a method called DFR. So basically reliability has three different tools. Number one is reliability prediction. Number one is reliability prediction. Number two is reliability analysis. And number three is reliability demonstration. Prediction in general will be with different analytical methods or different physics and theories, which probably all of you might have learned in your corresponding domains. So, our basic electronics, electrical, mechanical, civil, structural engineering theories can be used for the prediction of the device life. How we can demonstrate or analyze it is based on the modern computational techniques. So, different tools like FEM, CFD, electrical modeling tools can be used for reliability prediction. And finally, since it is going inside human body, just with a mere prediction or with mere hand calculations, it will not be generating confidence. And again, it cannot be demonstrated whether it is working properly or not. So if a device has to work 50 years inside human body, in fact, really, it should be tested for 50 years. So let us assume you are developing a device in 2020. The safe service life should be 50 years. So if you are starting the test on 2020, it will be completing by 2070. By the time the requirement might be different or a new device or technology will be coming. So we cannot compensate the testing but we need to meet the timeline also. So there is a approach which is widely used in the industry called accelerated testing. So in the accelerated testing, we can finish the test in a smaller amount of time. For example, the 10-year equivalent testing of a hardware can be completed within 1 year in an accelerated testing chamber. So we are basically accelerating the time taken and we are accelerating the failures and predicting it, which are the potential failure modes that can probably occur in the device. So based on the accelerated durability test results, we can qualify whether the device is good to go for next stage of clinical trial or not. So this approach is called design for reliability. So another interesting approach is a design for Six Sigma. So the traditional approach is every device developer has a target specification. The target specification will be basically a number. For example, we will be telling weight should be less than say 100 grams or weight should be less than 200 grams. And after design and development, when we observe our device is say 60 grams, 50 gram will be well below 100 grams, and people will be telling, yeah, the device is safe. So this is the traditional approach which was followed in the industry till 1960s and 1970s. Post 1960s and 1970s, a Japanese concept called design for Six Sigma is widely adopted by the industry due to the reduction in the device development time and also the increase in the revenue generated. So here, not only the mean value or not only two numbers we are checking, the design team will be checking the statistical distribution of the device performance with the criteria. So we can see here, even though the mean is very well below the upper spec limit, there is a spread of the device performance. So if this spread is crossing this upper spec limit, that means all data points or all devices which is crossing this upper spec limit are bound to fail once it is prototype. So in the design stage itself, the design team can predict if 1 lakh devices are being produced based on the current design and qualification criteria, probably what will be the number of defects. So nowadays, the industries are following a procedure like there should not be more than 3.4 defects per million products. This is called design for Six Sigma. And Six Sigma means between the mean and between the upper spec limit, we can place 6 sigma or 6 standard deviation. That means the difference between the upper spec limit SL and mean mu when divided by the standard deviation should be equal to 6. So if it is equal to 6, that means the device is very much robust. If we are using the same design and same recommended manufacturing process specification, the manufacturing stage when 1 million devices are produced, only 3.4 defects will be there. Basically, it is governed by three factors. Number one, the target specification or target upper limit, which is dictated by the customer or the clinical requirements. Number two is the mean. The mean depends on the voice of physics, which are the engineering principles, which are the engineering technologies, which is used for the development of the device. That will be affecting the value mu. And the one standard deviation sigma depends on the process capabilities. If you are taking a process of manufacturing, say laser cutting, probably one industry can perform the activity with a tolerance of plus or minus 20 micron. Company number two will be doing the same activity with a tolerance plus or minus 6 micron. Company three will be doing it with a tolerance plus or minus 10 micron. So depending upon vendor to vendor or company to company and their process capability, there will be cost variation and there will be quality variation. So the design and development team need to take a call based on the cost, based on the quality and reliability requirement, and have to find out what is the robust design score of critical parameters. I'm repeating critical parameters, not all parameters. For the critical parameters, what are the C score? So now the industries are following a practice like if the Z score is 6 or close to 6 or above 6, it is well and good for releasing into the market. So this is one safe criteria or criteria check which some of the companies use nowadays, so that there should be minimum returns or minimum complaints from the field. Moving to the next one, we already discussed waterfall process. So just to conclude it, starts with user requirements, which is dictated by the clinical team, the regulatory team, statutory requirement, and business requirement. Followed by that, design inputs will be generated. Various methods can be used for design process. It should result in acceptable criteria and design outputs. Finally, a medical device will be developed and the device will be verified whether it is meeting the design input. So have a look here. So this is again the accelerated test setup which we have used for testing heart valve. If the device design is passing this particular test, it means that our device meet the design input. That means the design input is met, but we are not sure whether it is working properly inside human body. So for that, we need to do a validation. So the validation says, yes, the device is meeting the clinical requirements. So that is basically a difference between verification and validation. If even if the verification is 100% positive, the validation can go wrong if we are doing any mistake in this particular step. So in general, there is a saying in the industry for any established devices in the market, if you are done with user requirement to design input gathering, we are 50% done. Rest of the activities will take care itself. So this is a generic idea of the waterfall process. Another process which is used in industry is called stage gate process. It is an alternative to uh, the waterfall process used in USA. So the stage gate process consists of different gates: gate 0, gate 1, gate 2, gate 3, gate 4, gate 5, and gate 6. So once the product is in the concept stage and the concept stage is about to complete, it is called gate 0. And the gate 0 involves different tools like voice of customer, quality of function deployment, product development scorecard. So all these parameters and R&D activities are carried out during the concept of product. Once after review, if gate 1 is qualified, now we move to the definition stage. The definition stage involves from the different concept, which one should be chosen. So concept selection and trade-off and subsequent tools like Hugh metrics will be coming there. Also, as per the current regulatory requirements, a design risk analysis need to be carried out. So there are different tools for that, like risk metrics for me for performing the activity. After particular maturity of activity, if the definition stage or the gate 2 is qualified, it will move to design and development. Design and development involves various analytical design, testing, activity, optimization, sensitivity study, etc. And finally, once we are good to go to the next stage, gate 3 will be qualified. Gate 4 is called validation and verification, which involve stringent testing of the device for all safety and efficacy parameters involving reliability, durability, etc. Once the validation stage is ready, including the clinical trial and subsequent animal trial, it is good to go for production. So almost in all industry, the R&D teams is involved from concept stage to validation stage, and it will be handed over to the production. So this is what happens in original equipment manufacturers. Whereas in the case of R&D institutions and academic institutions which are working on technology transfer mode, The R&D team will be working either till design and development or till validation. Followed by that, it will be technology transfer to a commercial partner who will be performing the production and launch. In foreign countries, there is a practice post-launch, there is an audit, and there is a failure reporting and corrective action. So this database will form a repository, and this database will be returning back to the concept stage for the next version of the device development. So this in general is called a stage gate process or gate 1 to gate 6 process, which again is used by different industry for product development. So to show a schematic representation, again, what are the tools which we discussed in waterfall process and where it comes in stage. So design and development modeling activities come within gate 3. Optimization and sensitivity and distribution studies again come to stage gate 3 or design and development. Probability and severity and subsequent studies will come to gate 2. And the reliability testing and lifing activities come to validation stage. So this is a brief overview of stage gate process. So to sum up, in India, uh, in 1940, there was a Drug and Cosmetic Act, which was the one which was dictating the approval and regulatory aspects of the medical devices, which was very highly fluidic and not in a very structured pattern. So this issue continued till 2005. From 2005, there has been a major effort from the national level and from our institute level and many such key government players in the R&D to make this highly unregulated domain into regulated domain. So it took at least a decade or more so that the government come up with a rule. And based on the current rule of Indian Medical Device Directive, any medical device manufacturer who is developing a medical device, based on the criticality, safety, and risk of the device, need to follow various standards for the medical device quality management system, medical device risk management, medical device reliability, and any applicable horizontal or vertical standard corresponding to the product. If a vertical standard is not available to the product, after discussion with the concerned specialist team, required criteria should be pulled from the horizontal horizontal standards. Horizontal standard is also not available for a completely innovative product. The development team has to develop substantiate evidence to support their claim. Then only it will get the approval and we can put the device into a regulated market. So this is a summary of the medical device development and associated processes. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. Since